Hello. We're just preparing for our first Fireside Chat Friday, and we are almost ready to go live very soon. We're just getting our guests. And then we will be ready to start. Huge welcome to our viewers for this opening session of Fireside Chat Fridays by Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons. I'm Haneen, and I'm going to be your host for the afternoon. And as soon as our guest is ready, we will start our broadcast. We are just setting up. Please type in with your comments and questions as you join, and we will do our best to include them in the broadcast. This video will also be available for viewing after the recording is complete. So if you can't catch us now, you will be able to view it later as well. Hello, Anna. I see you. We are just inviting our guest. And we will start very shortly. Please feel free to drop your comments and questions in the chat, and we will try to include them as we go. We're very excited for this conversation with Bishop William Swing, who is one of the founding leaders of Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons, and we are looking forward to asking him about his work and his... Oh, welcome!
Well, I can't believe I'm here.
Oh, you made it! Thank you so much for joining us today, Bishop Swing. I'm just going to do a very quick introduction, and then we'll dive right into the first question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Just for folks who are joining for the first time, we want to, give you a little intro about Voices. We're an interfaith and intercultural group advocating for nuclear abolition from a intergenerational, ethical, and faith-based perspective. Our leaders and members span from seasoned politicians and diplomats to youth leaders and are based all around the world. We have with us today Bishop William Swing, who is one of the founding leaders of Voices, as well as the president of the United Religions Initiative. And I think that can be one of the first questions that we'd like to ask him about as well. So Bishop, you founded URI, and then you also founded Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons. And, we're curious to hear more about how these two how these two vocations or these two callings kind of intersect for you. How in our own ethical and faith journey can we think about nuclear weapons? How do these two projects connect for you? If you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I was an Episcopal priest, a Christian. I was a bishop, and when you do that, you pay attention to your congregation, you pay attention to your diocese, and that could be all-consuming. There's plenty to do in the parish, plenty to do in the diocese, but some issues are just beyond parish, beyond diocese. You have to hold two ideas in your brain at the same time: as my religion, and then the bigger issues that go beyond my religion. And it's hard to hold those in tension because everybody's expecting you to do the right thing by your religion. They're not expecting you to do a whole lot about the world.
Yeah.
And if you go out into the world, then you got to work twice as hard. You got to have one energy going over here and one energy going over here. And some people over here are mad that you're over there and blah, blah, blah. So once you take your step into those bifurcated waters, then you're in for a lot of energy output. So I must say, nuclear weapons came before interfaith concerns for me.
Mm-hmm.
When I was the Bishop of California, I had 5 counties around the Bay Area, 35 little bank, schools, cathedral, housing homeless,
Mm-hmm.
and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I kept reading about the nuclear issue and how we have enough weapons to bomb the entire world 17 times.
Hmm.
I was thinking back in 1983. I was thinking, why? It's insane to think about enough weapons to destroy the world 17 times.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, if I ever have to answer to God about what I did on this earth, once you realize that, and you think God created it all and we're going to destroy it all, someday you're going to be answerable. What did you do? You know about it. You see the big picture. If you don't do anything about it, then you're not part of my creation. You're part of the destruction of my creation.
Mm.
And so I got involved. I was not a leader necessarily, and I didn't write a lot of papers and do a lot of things, but I did do what I could do. I worked on the nuclear freeze, and I got Sidney Drell, the great physicist, and George Bundy from the White House administration. I got Caspar Weinberger, who was Secretary of Defense, to come to Grace Cathedral and talk about nuclear weapons, because I thought the one thing that I could do is get people in the public to think about it.
Yeah.
If you have a big cathedral,
yeah.
you got a big pulpit, you got a big audience.
Yeah.
So I didn't need to do all the speaking. I could get people who knew a whole lot more and were a whole lot more powerful than I.
Yeah.
I'd get them out on the stage and work on the conscience of everybody. So I started working here and there on the nuclear weapon issue around 1983.
Wow.
It was about 10 years later that I got a phone call from the United Nations, and I'm sitting there working about the Episcopal Church, Christian religion, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, comes a telephone call from the United Nations saying, we want you to be the host of the United Nations 50th anniversary.
Wow.
At your cathedral.
Wow.
So I said, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And honored. And then I began to think, wait a minute. The nations of the world have met every day for 50 years to struggle together for good of the world. And in the same 50 years, the religions of the world haven't spoken to each other. Who's more moral, nations or religions? And I thought, well, okay, as dumb as it is, I'm going to start a United Religions Initiative. I'm going to start a United Religions. I know that's stupid. I know it can't be done. I don't have any money. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But let's just get out there and get going.
No.
So as time went along, the United Religions became an initiative, and it became a reality all over the world. And then I thought, oh, wait a minute. We're doing youth environment, we're doing everything, but we're not doing anything about nuclear threat.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, let me get some of my friends together. So I got the former Secretary of State, I got some ambassadors, I got former Secretary of Defense, I got activists, and et cetera. And we had a little group, and we started praying together, and we started experimenting, and one thing led to another, and all of a sudden our reach becomes a lot bigger now. So United Religions Initiative has been blessed by the spirit of the divine, I think. I know. And Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons has been visited and energized by the spirit of the divine. So I am so blessed to be
So are we.
right in the middle. I
Mm-hmm.
just put up my spinnaker, and the wind comes by, and your sailboat takes off, and you cross the lake you go. So
Amazing.
it's a thrilling boat ride.
No, I one thing you said, Bishop, that, I mean, it's an inspirational story, and I'm just so glad to be able to share this with, folks who are joining us today and folks who will view this video later on. And, it's incredibly exciting to be on this journey. And one thing you said that really stood out to me was that we all just do what we can. And I think that can be, one thing that I at least will be trying to carry with me from this conversation. So my next question for you, and I would also like to invite the audience, to please drop any comments or thoughts in the chat, and let us know if they have questions to ask. So our next question for you, Bishop, would be, in your view, given this, prolonged period of time that you've been engaged with this issue, and, the different platforms that you've been kind of working on it from, and the people that you've interacted with, what, in your view, is the greatest hurdle to nuclear abolition as we see it today?
I think it would be denial.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the 500-pound gorilla or elephant in the living room that nobody wants to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to the Congress of the United States, they don't debate the nuclear issue very much, tiny bit, and they don't seem to care a lot. They just want security.
Mm-hmm.
And the public has just gone to sleep. The preachers have lulled them to sleep. The politicians have lulled them to sleep, lulled them to sleep. Newspaper articles lulled. People don't understand the urgency.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while, something comes along to disturb the complacency or denial about the issue. Nuclear weapons is with us 24 hours a day, every day of 365 days. The bombs are ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
All over the world. They're targeted, ready to go, from submarines, from airplanes, from the ground. They're not out there waiting for to get it to assemble this thing. Those things are assembled. They're targeted, and they're ready to go. And every once in a while, somebody reminds us of the insanity that we're dealing with. And I think the last days of the Trump administration have been terrific in one regard. It has made some people think, oh my goodness, what about this person is kind of unhinged, and he's got his finger on the nuclear trigger. And all of a sudden people begin to be kind of concerned about that.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy was unhinged for 4 years. What about the head of North Korea? He has his hands on the bombs. He's building a submarine, celebrating it today, that can fire it off. And those submarines can get around the world, and they can fire it off. What about Putin? How benevolent is he? What about Pakistan? What about, it's, and on and on and on. You can't, there's some things that should not be in the hands of human beings,
Right.
And they should not be in the hands of unhinged human beings. And they should only be in the hands of perfect human beings. and there aren't any. And if there aren't any human beings, there's no perfect system. Then we got to. I got to say, my battery's running low.
Oh no. Well, we'll let you go in a moment. But this is just so rich and so interesting that I hate to cut it short. Do we have a couple minutes that we can
Oh, wait,
just
I have a lot. If you'll give me a second to get the charger, I'll be back.
please, please, please. That
Okay.
might give our audience a moment to
Okay.
just.
Could you sing a song or something?
That's not one of my talents, unfortunately, but I think this is just a moment for us all to take in what, the knowledge and the insight that Bishop Swing has shared with us, and we have a couple more questions that we would love for him to shine a little bit of light on. And we, of course, encourage anyone who's watching to engage. You can write us on social media. You can email us with more questions and with your comments. After the broadcast, if you wish, we'll drop our email address in the chat section as well. So. So that will be a way for us to hear from you too, and continue the conversation offline.
Okay, we're all set.
Oh, thank you, Bishop.
Sure.
So I guess unless you had more thoughts to share on our last inquiry, I'd be curious about how we can. And this speaks to a lot of the work that Voices is doing, and we'll come to that in just a moment, but just how we can sort of turn around this dire situation, and think about, as we, sort of acknowledge, the nuclear security issues in the world today, this increasing divisiveness in political rhetoric, and just this sort of international atmosphere of this difficulty sort of finding a solution to this very difficult problem. How do we think about, where is our greatest strength and resource as we come up against these issues? A lot of folks who are watching will be young people. A lot of us are not policy experts on this particular issue. So how do we think about, drawing upon collective strength and finding resource together, and combating this existential threat? How can we show up at our strongest?
Right. Let me tell you about some of the people I work with. I might be at Stanford University, and there'll be scientists, there'll be military, there'll be newspaper editors, there'll be all kinds of people, Russian experts, et cetera. And at the end of the day, they know their limits. They have enough knowledge. They have enough people to talk to for the rest of their lives, but they don't have an audience. They can't move the needle of popularity out in the world. And two things that are clear. Number one, they'll look to religious voices, spiritual voices, and say, "This is your moment. You gotta lead." And when I look around at religious voices, what they do is they usually sign a document saying, "We're against it. Goodbye. Now let's get on with church, or a mosque, or temple, or synagogue, or whatever." Nobody in the religious group sees this as well, not, I shouldn't say nobody, a few do. But 98% of religious folks don't give it a thought. And if religious leaders don't find their voice, this is really going to be bad. Secondly, when I'm dealing with all these experts, what they're dying for is a young audience and young advocates and young colleagues and young leadership. But they don't know how to mobilize people. They know how to read books and keep up with legislation and read the news, but they don't know how to get people together who are young. And so I can't tell you how powerful you are in terms of potential. It's just unlimited potential, and it's ultimately consequential. And this is the moment for young people, especially following these last days where people are worried about the nuclear code and the suitcase, the football. This is a moment that we could build on. So those are my immediate thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think it's encouraging and heartening and almost life-giving for us to hear, that kind of support and encouragement from someone with your kind of experience and commitment and passion for some of this work. And I think it'll certainly give us it'll energize us as we continue in some of these efforts. And I think that kind of brings me to my next question, which is really about Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons, and how you think what kind of role Voices is playing to change the nuclear abolition landscape, or what kind of role it can play in the future. What your vision and your hopes are for some of that.
Right. The nuclear, the ban on nuclear weapons, the treaty, which got over 50 nations now to sign, and they got the Nobel Peace Prize, and we're going to celebrate them this month. The average age of those people, by the way, is like 27 or 29 years old. So, you can't say, well, this doesn't, young people don't matter much in this. Young people won the Nobel Peace Prize from working on this. Average age 27, 29, something like that. So they're just champions. Terrific for them, and terrific for the rest of us to have them go before us and be leaders. I didn't know what I was doing when I got into working in 2008 with a couple of my friends. We just got together and talked over issues and had a prayer and met every month. And that was kind of it. And then somebody said, well, why don't we make a video of the prayer we say? Well, we did. And the prayer, that was pretty good video. And all of a sudden, other people started watching it, and some people started using the prayer. And then we went to the Parliament of World Religion and told people about it. Other people wanted to join in. And then we went to Stanford, and a lot of other people wanted to join in. And then we started working on the nuclear video for Hiroshima 75, Nagasaki, Hiroshima.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, more young people came in. And then we saw, wait a minute, we got all these great young people. Why don't we get into education? Why don't we get into videos? Why don't we get into Facebook website? Why don't we get into social media? And it wasn't like I sat down at the beginning and thought, whoa, we ought to have these. It wasn't like that at all. You just go out and play in the traffic. And whoever shows up to play with you, is that what you build on that? Might not be the perfect person or the greatest person or whatever. It's the person that you got.
Yeah.
So then you just build on what you got, and then you create a kind of community energy where people's vision and energy feeds off each other, and deep calls to deep. something deep inside people resonates with something deep inside of other people, and then you can't underestimate the power of that. And therefore, I always keep the voices very loosey-goosey, because you just never know who's going to show up with a gift that we don't have today that we're going to need desperately tomorrow. So that, you know, don't let any of this work get put down into cement. Keep it fluid. Nothing more exciting or powerful than human beings walking through the door. So as happy as I am for where we are right now and all the possibilities that are open up, I just can't wait for the next group to come in, because we're gonna, every round goes higher, like Jacob's ladder. And I can't wait for the next rung.
That's such a powerful image. You know, and what you said, nothing more exciting than human beings walking through the door, I think. That's just, it's you know, I've experienced that during my work with voices, and I'm sure all of us have. So thank you for holding that space for all of us, and, you know, now for all the folks that we're broadcasting out to, and for joining us today, Bishop. So as a concluding question, I wonder if you could speak to, you know, what is your one prayer or wish or hope for us as you, and for our world, and for this issue, as we conclude today's opening fireside chat. You know, could you maybe leave us with a prayer? The floor is yours.
Yeah. Well, in the nuclear prayer that we say, we talked about our Earth, and then we pause and say, wait a minute, your Earth. And then we say, please lift the fog of atomic darkness that hovers so pervasively over our Earth, your Earth. And that's my prayer, that there is an atomic darkness that hovers pervasively over our Earth, and it's a darkness that that the world has made its peace with, has grown accustomed to, is satisfied the way it is. And we're saying our prayer is, get us out of this darkness, lead us towards some light. Light is life. Our life is gray because of the threat. So the atomic darkness that so pervasively hovers over us. So that's my prayer, that we would be led out of that into a new life. The world has been around for 4.5 billion years, and nuclear weapons have been around 75 years. I'd bet on the world more than I'd bet on the nuclear weapons for making it in the long run.
Well, amen to that, Bishop. And thank you again for joining us. Thank you to our audience for tuning in. This video will be available to view on our different social channels after we close the broadcast. You can contact us on contact@voices-uri.org if you'd like to drop an email. And we look forward to hearing from you. And until the next Fireside Chat Friday, may peace prevail on earth, and may the fog of atomic darkness, as Bishop has said, be lifted. So thank you all, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.